Thank you for joining me for today's burst of innovation. This is a continuation of Monday about how to get rid of the they syndrome that is totally killing your innovation efforts. They shuts down innovation. That's the them versus us mentality. That's the, it didn't work because they screwed it up. It got halted because they did this, right? It's that one-way tennis match. If you want a little bit more about the why they syndrome kills innovation and how to recognize it, go to our website, go to LaunchStreet.com and go look up Monday's burst of innovation. I talk about I think it's 5 or 6 ways that you can actually identify it in your organization. And here's the thing, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's insidious. And as I said on Monday, it's a bit like an equalizer where there might be a little this, a little that, maybe a lot of this. It's not kind of it all looks this way or that way, but there are ways that you and your team may be behaving that highlight the fact that you have a they syndrome problem that is hindering your ability to get your work done and to get to those great results. What I want to do today is give you 3 strategies for overcoming they syndrome and share some stories along with them. So I'm going to go right to my slides because the stories are kind of in the strategies. These are really easy to implement strategies and they will help you right away get over they. So let me get to my slides. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about the 3 strategies syndrome. I apparently forgot the E. Hold on. I got to fix that or I will lose my mind. Do you guys have that when you're reading something and it looks totally right? And then you go back to it and you're like, oh, that's not right at all. Syndrome. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm actually not in any way whatsoever a perfectionist, but when I see something that I missed, it drives me nuts. Okay. Where did you go? A little tech issue this morning. You all there? Okay, here you are. All right, can everybody see me? I have a little bit of a tech issue this morning. That was weird. Let's try that again. Play from current slide. Use slideshow. Okay. Just make sure this is working here. Can you just, one of you put in the chat bar that you can see my slide? I just want to make sure. Yes. Okay, Kirby. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Weird tech issue. All right. Let's talk about the 3 strategies to get over the they syndrome so that you can get to that collaboration and innovation you need to get to your goals, to succeed, to drive innovation, to adapt and pivot. All right, here we go. The first one is have your team not say the word they for a week. Now, I know that sounds a little bit childish or maybe like you're trying to cover up the issue, but it's not. And let me share a story with you from someone who I greatly admire, who I met actually, we were both keynoting at the same conference. And then I actually interviewed him for my book, Innovation is Everybody's Business. And there's a much longer story in there. His name is David Marquette, and he was the commander of a nuclear submarine. And one of the things he realized on his submarine is that they had a they syndrome problem. Now, as you can imagine, a submarine is like our corporate and our team and our small businesses amplified, stuck underwater together with nowhere to go. So it is our world, but in the extreme. Now, he realized he had a they syndrome. So he'd go to someone and say, why isn't this done? And they'd say, well, they didn't get me the parts I needed. They didn't have what I wanted. So-and-so didn't do it. So he told his team, the sailors, you are not allowed to say they. So here's what happened. So he shares this story of him going to one of his maintenance guys to say, hey, is this fixed? So he went to his guy and he said, hey, is this issue fixed? And the guy started to go, well, and then he stopped himself and he said, I didn't have the parts I needed to move it forward. And then David said, as the commander said, well, what will you do differently? And he said, I will go to supply and get the parts. What he wanted to say was, they didn't get them to me in time. They didn't deliver them to me. But because he couldn't say they, he had to own, and suddenly he was accountable for not having the parts he needed. And what David told me when I interviewed him is when his team was forced to get rid of the word they, the accountability actually shot up, and it was frustrating and it was hard, but it actually taught people accountability. So try it for a week. You can't say they, right? The word they at all. It forces people to own accountability. And it also starts to make you realize how much you maybe are blaming, pushing, putting the control on an external force and not yourself. My suggestion for those of us in leadership roles is to not only not let them say the word they, but then to also debrief and say, well, what did that experience teach us? Actually have a real honest discussion about it. I've tried this with my team and I've tried it with clients, and it's absolutely amazing to see the transformation and the realizations that happen in just 1 week. So getting rid of the word they to help get to accountability helps you overcome the they syndrome. Okay, the next one is discuss the friction. So I have this incredible slide that actually it's a worksheet that I use for people who have taken the Innovation Quotient Edge assessment and those that are in our tribe, our everyday innovator member tribe. And it's a sheet that has on one side how you innovate, right? All the different triggers that come together so that you know how you innovate. And then it's got how you add value as your everyday innovator style. But then on the right column is the thing we don't talk enough about, and that is how we cause friction. Oftentimes, our friction is misunderstood, and how we cause friction is why when we cause friction, that's what makes the people on the other side get frustrated with us, make us the they people, the people who are different than them, the people that frustrate them, because they don't understand see, I just said it. We don't understand how our differences are actually our strength. Instead, we see that friction as frustration. Okay, let me give you an example of one of the triggers that could make up your everyday innovator style. Some people are this, some are not. It's inquisitive. Inquisitive are all about digging deep, challenging assumptions, pulling back layers. As you can imagine, people who are inquisitive innovate in the questions, not the answers. Because of that, they ask a lot of questions, which if you're someone like me who's a risk taker, who's all about being bold and pushing the limits and just leaping and figuring it out, as you can imagine, that's super frustrating to me, because I want to leap and they're holding me back by asking questions. That's how I feel about it, right? That's not them, that's me. In discussing how they innovate and how they cause friction, I came to realize, oh my gosh, what's frustrating me is actually their greatest strength. It's asking questions. Suddenly, I saw the value in the friction. So instead of the friction causing a they syndrome, the friction became our greatest competitive advantage. It became their greatest strengths, and we got to work together. So discuss the friction. When you understand how all of you on the team innovate and how you add value and cause friction, you don't just talk about the good stuff, you talk about the stuff that causes the they syndrome. Then you start to realize you can get over the they syndrome. I mentioned on Monday that I had this fast food client where they had these mini teams that needed to work together. And it was very much of like, I do all the work. I don't know what that team does. They lollygag all day. What value do they bring anyway, right? Super they syndrome problem. My client, the leader of the team, told me discussing the friction was one of the best things they did, because they started to see the value in the things that frustrated them. They got over the hurdle of the friction causing the they syndrome. So discuss the friction. My advice to you, though, is do it through a tool like the IQE, where it's about how you innovate and how you add value and how the friction can be seen differently. I would hesitate to just get everybody in the room and be like, why does Bob bother you? What does Mia do that really frustrates you? What is Paul doing that doesn't work, right? That becomes a bitch session in all truth. A tool like the IQE allows you to see those differences as strengths, as value that the other person brings. A little bit of friction and debate is actually quite good for innovation, but you got to understand how that friction actually provides strength and value. Okay, the third one is create a shared innovation challenge. Here's the thing. We're humans. We love a common challenge, a common goal. When you think about your favorite movies, they're always the ones where a ragtag group of people who absolutely do not get along have something they're working towards together that overcomes the frustrations and maybe even the differences. I think there's value in difference, but I think you understand the point I'm making. In fact, I was just watching this movie called, I think it was called the USS Indianapolis. It was about this ship during World War II, and they got hit by a submarine. And, you know, in the beginning, a lot of the sailors didn't get along. And then obviously towards the end, their shared challenge was survival, right? They found a way to come together. Well, that applies to our teams at work as well. When we have a common challenge to work towards, we get excited, we bond, we connect. And I think especially right now where things are so uncertain and so crazy, having a common shared challenge, an innovation challenge, really helps rallying people. As I've said in other bursts before, it's kind of like being in the fourth quarter of the football game and you're the team that's down by 3 touchdowns. Your coach doesn't come to you and go, "Nah, don't worry about it. It's all good. Just get a field goal so we have some points on the board." No, they're like, "We're coming together. We're going to overcome this." And you see those comebacks. And even if you didn't make the comeback, there's that bond that comes out of working together. We love shared challenges. We are tribal humans. We are still tribal. We are hardwired that way to want to come together to achieve something. Find that big, hairy, big, audacious, crazy challenge and put your team on it together. Find that opportunity to shift. Give them the big real world challenge that you're struggling with and come together. Creating a shared innovation challenge helps people overcome the they syndrome. It's more than just doing your job and achieving your goals. It is really coming together in a way. So, okay, the 3 super simple strategies to get over they syndrome on your team. Number 1, get rid of the word they. And give it to everybody. This is not just a one person. I know you probably have a few people who are worse at this or suffer from this more than others, but give it to the whole team. Make everybody a part of this. Number 2, discuss the friction. Turn the friction from frustration into value and strength. And number 3, create a shared innovation challenge. Rally the team, get them on the playing field together. Okay, here's what I want to know in the chat bar. Which one of these speaks to you? And by speaks to you, I mean, which one are you actually going to implement? Which one are you going to try? Which one do you think with your team would really help them shift? And while you're putting that in the chat bar, I'm just going to say, hey, don't forget, we've got some incredible free bonuses and downloads on our website. I highly recommend that if you haven't done them already, to go take advantage of them. The leadership guide, the assessment, the innovation workshop coming up. They're all really powerful. All right, Donna says all 3, but starting with 2. Yeah, 2 is so great because, well, they're all good because it really, that friction, by the way, Donna, I'm glad you kind of resonate with that one. Yep, you too, Kirby, same one. It's the elephant in the room that's holding everybody back all the time. It's that kind of invisible rope that keeps people from performing at their peak, from achieving their goals, from working together. It's invisible in a lot of ways, and it's that elephant, and you got to address it. And I can't tell you the number of times I've been in client meetings where we have addressed the friction using a tool like the IQE. As I said, it's not a free-for-all, right? It's not a bitch session. Using the tool, the IQE, and seeing that team recognize why they're frustrated with each other and why that frustration and how that frustration can be turned into something that actually works in their benefit. All right, Stephen. Hey, Stephen says number 1. Yes, right attitude, right? The they thing is I'm so glad you said attitude. The they thing, time, okay, is really about mindset, isn't it? And I think we don't realize it. That commander, David Marquette, was telling me, my team didn't even know they were doing it, right? My sailors had no idea that their lives revolved around blaming other people. And, you know, the reality is in his world and in ours, we need other people to innovate. We need other people to get things done. We don't get to be the Lone Ranger. It doesn't work that way. So the they syndrome is very easy to take over. Kirby says, what we do today sets the stage for the future. Yeah. Every day is a choice to make the future stronger and better. It's funny that you say that, Kirby, because I was just having this conversation with my kiddos where they were saying, I wish that, you know, or in the future I want. I was like, right, but what are you doing today to make that possible tomorrow. And sometimes that's a little step and sometimes it's a big step. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Always good to see you on the Burst of Innovation. Take advantage of the free tools if you haven't already. Great to see you all. Hold on, Mia says, number 3, as a solopreneur, I can get ideas from other peers and value each other's perspective. Yeah, exactly. I often ask people who not only have different jobs, industries, worlds than I do, I also ask people who I know are going to poke the bear. They're going to poke me a little bit. And I find it really uncomfortable and really frustrating and really challenging, but they help me see holes that I didn't see. And yes, Mia is in Cabo, Kirby. That's great. Yeah, I love that, Mia. I think we really need to ask people who we know are going to poke us a little bit. This is why, by the way, I love using yes and as an exercise, as in a way to build. I don't love ignoring the yes butters because I think they add value. It's just a matter of how we approach them and how we get them to help us add value. I think we spend too much time avoiding the yes butters, and because of that, there's big holes in our thinking. It's egotistical to think we have all the answers. Those yes butters, while maybe frustrating, see things we don't see. And if we come into that knowing they're amazing and that it's going to add value, we'll get that back. Kirby says, ask the question, tell me more, like 3 times. Yeah, tell me more is, I think, one of the most powerful things you can say back to someone, whether they ask you a question, give you a comment, share an idea. I love tell me more. Okay, everyone, I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you for being here. So good to see you all. Have a great rest of your week. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here.